Good evening. It's May 24th, 2022, and the time is now 6:06 p.m. I now call this meeting of the Urban Design Commission to order. Pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022 of the Remote Meeting Provisions of the Governor's March 12th, 2020 Executive Order, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, this meeting of the Urban Design Commission is conducted via remote participation. We will make recordings available to the public as soon as possible after the meeting. My name is Courtney Kirk, co-chair of the Urban Design Commission. I will start the meeting with a roll call of the commission members present. Andrew Arbaugh.
Here.
Tim Talon.
Present.
Deborah Fennick.
Here.
Tim Hood.
Present.
And members Frank Valdez and Sherry Ruane are absent. Also with me this evening is Andrew Grominski, and our other co-chair, Sarah Lewis, is running late.
Sherry may be here.
Courtney, this is Andrew G. Yeah, I believe Sherry is here in the background. Sherry, can you hear us? I believe you're self-muted.
Here in spirit.
I don't think I have her number or anything.
She just texted me and she is here.
Okay.
With an exclamation point.
I need her to speak then, so we can have a verbal roll call here.
Hey.
Just stay here.
Here.
All right, let the record show that Sherry Ruane is here. Alrighty then. Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry. Thank you. Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Fuck yes. Okay, sorry. Did you hear me just swear?
Yes, both times.
Yes, both times. Sorry about that. I'm fighting with my car. I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm here.
All right, great.
All right, great.
Okay. So our first order of business is to approve the April 12, 2022 meeting minutes. Are there any comments that you all have? No? All right then, do I have a motion to approve the April 12, 2022 minutes?
A motion?
Do I have a second?
I will second.
All right. Motion made by Andrew Arbaugh, seconded by Tim Hood. Roll call vote. Andrew Arbaugh.
Yes.
Tim Talon.
Yes.
Deborah Fennick.
Yes.
Sherry Ruane.
Yes.
Thank you. And Tim Hood.
Yes.
All right. The meeting minutes from April 12th, 2022 have been approved. The first item on our agenda is the continuation of the 366 Broadway project. If the one attendee, I hope it's for the 366 Broadway project, can be promoted and welcome to the meeting.
Yes, that's me.
Evan, you're all set.
Okay, I'm just gonna show my screen.
We're having problems hearing you, Evan, if you're speaking.
Okay, so I was having issues with my computer audio, so I called in. Can you hear me better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So it's great to be presenting to you guys again. Long time no talk. We've made a lot of progress since the last time that we spoke on April 12th. Just to give you a quick recap of the property and the metrics of the project, we're located at 366 Broadway. If you go this way up towards the top left, you'll hit Magoon Square. And if you drive down Broadway to the right, you'll hit Foss Park. It is an MR4 zone. It is within half mile of the Gilman Square Green Line Station, and it is not a pedestrian street. We're proposing a 4-story apartment building with 58 residential units. 20% of those will be affordable. We'll have a number of amenities, including a community room, remote work room, storage, fitness, package room, etc. 58 bicycle parking spaces, and the gross floor area is proposed to be a little under 50,000 square feet. So we will be designing for net zero ready to get the density bonus, and it will be a LEED Gold certifiable building.
Evan, can I stop you for a second? I just want to make sure. So we're seeing your Revit model. Is that what we're supposed to be looking at right now?
Let me just switch my screens then. Sorry, I have 2 monitors, so I guess it's shared in one monitor and not the other. Is that better?
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, that's a little embarrassing. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so these are the slides I just walked through. So the unit mix is about 57% studios, 21% 1 bedrooms, 14% 2 bedrooms, and 8% 3 bedrooms for a total of 58 units. It's designed to comply with all of the zoning dimensional requirements. We're just going for a site plan review for the building type and a special permit for the household living. This is our proposed site plan. We have not changed this since the last meeting, since there's a few changes to the 3 schemes, which we haven't finalized yet. But just to walk through this, Broadway would be at the bottom of the screen, Thurston on the left side. So we are proposing the 12-foot curb step back to our structure. This plan is showing 3 new street trees and 2 existing street trees. The primary entrance is off of Broadway, around here in the middle of the building. And then we have a secondary entrance down the hill at the basement level on Thurston Street. There's also a 3rd entrance for the secondary means of egress at the basement level at the rear of the site. And then the remainder of the site will be infilled with green space and a small space for an underground transformer vault. This is our proposed site plan. I won't walk through this plan because it contains all the same information I just went over, but we are occupying about 90% of the site with ground coverage. Moving on to the changes to the exterior. So on the left, you'll see what we presented to you at the last meeting, and on the right is what we're currently presenting. So some of the comments that we got last time were that you wanted to see more of an asymmetrical division along Broadway. So we've reflected that here. And you also wanted to see a more cohesive architecture between the 2 massings, which I feel like we captured here. Now I'll just walk through all the 3 schemes individually. I'm sorry, this is just the differences on Thurston Street. So our first scheme, when we introduced the asymmetrical division here, the brick portion at the right side got significantly larger than what we were showing before. And then we introduced some hierarchy with the bays here, so you can really see where the entrance of the building here, where the building is. So the right side here is primarily red brick, and then we have a standing seam siding at the top here. and then there's a cast stone water table at the ground level. To the left of the division, we have open balconies at the corner where we carry the standing seam across and down, and then we introduce a gray brick and some faux cedar material here. And then this bottom elevation along Thurston Street, you can see the balconies wrap around. The gray brick occupies a majority of this elevation here, and then the faux cedar elements between the windows. This is facade option 2. Again, we have the large red brick massing at the right side. We didn't change much there, but then at the left side, we're using a majority of a simulated cedar panel, and you can see that wraps around along Thurston Street. And then we swapped out the gray brick material for a standing seam material and used the simulated brick between the windows there.
Hi, Evan. I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you once again. So the commission already voted on a preferred option, facade option in your first meeting. So I'm a little confused why you're presenting facade alternatives again.
Well, it was my understanding that the commission, you liked facade option 2 from the previous because of the open bay at the corner. Let me see. So it's my understanding you liked the open element here of the balconies, but the commission did not like that it was a symmetrical division between the two massings. And I was under the impression that that was supposed to be addressed.
Yeah.
Did we actually take a vote to identify option 2?
Andrew Graminsky, I think you have the official record from the last time that this applicant appeared before the UDC. Can you clarify for us, please?
Yes, in the notes that I took from the previous meeting, April 12th, there was a motion by Sherry to approve option 1, facade option 1, which was seconded by Frank Valdez.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't recall that. Are you sure that's for this project?
Yeah, I don't recall that either.
I don't either, clearly.
Well, I think then, Courtney, in this case, if there's, the commission can always take another vote on the facade.
Okay. Evan, is
This
that,
isn't a binding vote anyway, so.
yeah. Evan, are you and the commission, are you all comfortable with letting the applicant proceed with the various options that they started to present already?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, great. Sorry.
One thing to note is that the meeting minutes that we just approved do say that we approved option 1. So I don't know if we want to go back to that and undo that after this, though.
Yeah, that's a good point. That motion probably should be changed to incorporate edits.
All right, we'll circle back to that.
Could we say that this meeting we have 6 options for you and you approve one of the 6? Should you decide that you like one of the previous 3 better than those 3 that I'm presenting tonight?
I think you can just proceed with the 3
Okay.
you're presenting tonight.
Okay, so going back to option 2, the elevation along Thurston Street, we introduced the standing seam siding from the upper story of the Broadway elevation. And then this facade is primarily the simulated cedar with the standing seam. We have the open balconies at the corner, and we also introduce open balconies more towards the left side. So this third option deviates from having the open balconies at the corner like the previous 2, but it introduces some elements from facade option 1 from the previous meeting. So what we did along Broadway here is we broke the massing into 3, and we're bookending the more contemporary style architecture with 2 brick style massings here. Towards the left and the right, we maintain the red brick, and we have the standing seam siding at the top. And in the middle, we have a glass wall behind the porches. And then there's a second facade in front of that where we introduced some cementitious panels with alternating colors. As we wrap around Thurston Street here, we bring the brick around the corner and terminate it about a third of the way down. And then we carry the same more contemporary style architecture for the remainder of the Thurston Street elevation here. And then these are just the Broadway Street elevations, the three facades all next to each other, showing all the materials. And I also have the same for Thurston Street. Again, just to recap, this is what you saw before. I'm happy if you guys vote on any of these three. This is what we're presenting now. So you have 6 options that you can select for me to refine for the next meeting. If you have any specific questions about anything, I'd be happy to go into a little more detail. If not, I'm open to comment.
Yeah, just a clarification of the gray material. Is it always standing seam? So it's like in the mansard level as standing seam, and then in option 2, was it option 2? It becomes a part of the siding also. Is that correct?
So you're talking about the upper floor here?
Yeah, whatever's gray, is it always standing seam?
Yeah, it's the only standing seam siding. So in option 1, it's across the top and down the side. And then on Thurston Street, it carries around. And in option 2, it's also across the street. We just use less of it along Thurston.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, more of it along Thurston.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Can you please clarify, in all of these options, are you proposing a thin brick product or a full brick veneer?
So it's my understanding that the planning board will not approve a thin brick. So it's going to be a full brick.
Okay.
One other question, for the cast stone at the base, is the idea that that there's 2 different types or colors proposed?
Yes. So for the first 2, we're using more of a taupe color, and then down Thurston we changed to a gray.
Okay.
So I think, and unless somebody has a question. Okay. I guess I think scheme number 2 of the ones that you're showing tonight has the most coherence for me. I think number 3 is the one that I think is least successful, that it just feels like, the pattern, it just, with the center panel on the Broadway side being the contemporary, and then it's flanked by 2 more more historically referential brick sections. It just feels like one building. I think it sort of defeats the idea of the large building, long building requirement to break it down. If you just, because it's so symmetrical. So I guess I feel like the second alternative is the most successful, with the exception that I think that mansard level, I don't feel bringing up the brick into that is meaningful. It feels very much like an applique in the way that you've constructed this. I think it would be stronger just reading like a mansard level. It has prominence because it's 3 bays rather than 2, and has it sets in the middle of a symmetry of vertical elements. So, and I think it's got a larger window, maybe an entry at the base. The trees are obscuring it a little bit in the view I'm looking at. Yeah, so I don't think it's, I think it's stronger not being raised up into the mansard level. It's a quieter building. I think it's more coherent and a stronger proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
And I guess I'd just say on Thurston Street, using if I'm understanding it, it's using that metal, you are bringing the mansard level down as siding and, introducing the panel, the wood simulation panel. Yes, and so I think that, I just feel like it's more integrated than the other proposals. I think the new, what you're calling contemporary is doesn't have as good a relationship, I think, as this proposal in Scheme 2.
Yeah, I think I would generally agree with that. I think out of the 3 currently proposed options, all of which I think are an improvement over the original, by the way. I appreciate the refinements. But I think either 1 or 2 for me hold together better, and I think better address the intent of the zoning requirements for the 2 different buildings. Can you talk a little more about do you have a specific product in mind for the wood look panels?
We're actually we're doing a lot of research trying to find some alternative products to what's on the market today. I know Nichiha actually does make a nice one. That's down here over on the hotel on Somerville Avenue. Recently installed that. But there's also a new bamboo-based one that we might take a look at. But as of right now, we haven't settled on a specific manufacturer for that.
Okay.
Did you want to continue?
Yeah, I guess just one other corner. One thing that maybe jumped out at me a bit is the corner, how the building's addressing the corner. I think wrapping the balconies around the corner on the upper stories is a great way of addressing the corner, but where the building meets the sidewalk, it's a relatively tall, solid base, and just to have kind of a sharp angled corner there, I wonder whether there's another way, a refinement that could better address the corner, maybe better bring people around the corner. I don't know whether it's a chamfer or a notch or what it is, but just kind of a blank, hard corner feels a little maybe unfriendly is the word.
Yes, that makes sense. So would you want to see the balconies brought back at a chamfer there if it was a chamfer, or would you want to see the massing filled in similar to what we showed in Scheme 2 previously, and then chamfer the corner there?
I think it could be potentially either. I don't think the first story balcony needs to have the same footprint as the upper 3. I think if you wanted to keep something similar to what you're showing now for option 2, maybe it is those 1, 2, 3 upper story balconies stay as they are projecting, and then the footprint of that changes on the ground level.
Okay.
Tim Hood?
I would probably vote in support of Scheme 1 or Scheme 2. I think the symmetry in Scheme 3 on the Broadway side just feels a little too, I guess, too symmetrical. When I look at Scheme 2, I like how the material on the Thurston Street side kind of bleeds and connects the balconies. But in Scheme 1, it doesn't do that. It's 2 separate materials. I like the fewer combination of materials in Scheme 1, though. It just feels a little bit simpler. And there seems to be like a big contrast in materials and tonality in scheme 2, and at the corner in scheme 2, it looks like the wood paneling is taking precedent and being the dominant material, but on Thurston Street it looks like the vertical standing seam is taking precedent. So I think I would like to see if it was possible to have, you know, one material be more dominant than the other at both the corner and on the Thurston Street side, so it doesn't kind of read as you know, the Thurston Street and then the corner, and it might connect the two parts of the building a bit more. So I would probably lean towards scheme 1 just because it's a little bit simpler, but I can see some value in scheme 2 as well.
I think one of the things you identified, I agree. I think there's more of a logic to the organization of the materials in option 1. And maybe option 2 could be refined to achieve that same logic. There's the brick at kind of the outer face, and then the standing seam metal in the back at the mansard, and then at back at the balconies at the corner. I think the one piece that kind of doesn't follow the logic is the wood pier at the corner, which seems out of place there. I think you just lose the wood in that scheme if that was the direction. I'm trying to think of, you know, how would scheme 2 be refined to achieve that same logic? Is it just that the wood carries through at the balconies, at all the piers at the balconies, and that's kind of the backplane material?
Yeah, that's something I can take a look at. Something that I think is successful in scheme 1 is I cut the bay back at the upper story, so the standing seam it comes up and across. Where in scheme 2 I have that bay breaking up that material. So I think if I take that element from scheme 1 along Thurston Street, bring it down to scheme 2, and then you could see the wood on the upper story there, I think that would be successful. But I'll take a look at a few options and show you guys next time.
Yeah, I'd say one other thing about 2 that seems to break the logic is to see the wood as the spandrel piece between the windows in a horizontal orientation, and then to see it used on the lower story as a vertical pier between the windows. I don't know if it would be
I can play with that. Maybe we just don't use it at the ground floor at all, and then that reads more as a base.
Yeah, I think that would help. It's the same kind of logic to where you apply the materials. You know, if it's always at the bottom of the window versus you know, sometimes on the side. You know, if one logic is applied, I think that would help.
I'll jump in real quick. I mostly want to talk about the landscape plan, but I do agree with Tim Hood's comments. I prefer scheme 1 on this one. Just it seems simpler, and it looks smaller on the Thurston side. Just holding that one bay down, I think, helps with some of the scale of it on what is more of a residential street. Could we go to the landscape plan though as well?
Yeah.
I think so. I had a couple questions. So the 2 tiny little trees are the existings, and it's called out as 1-inch caliper Zelkova. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I can pull up the street view if you'd like to see them.
Okay, no, that's okay. And then the 3 that are there are proposed.
Yeah.
Okay. And the spacing is, it looks like, I want to say like 35 foot.
Yep.
I would say if there's any way to squeeze another one in, that would be great to look at that, to narrow it down a little bit. I think the bigger thing that I just wanted to call out is that per the last submission, I think something like 35% of your green score is coming through the use of the liquid ambar on the sort of green, I mean, I can't even call it really a landscape space. It's just green sort of, I don't know, like parsley zone, the little kind of strip between the property line. And that's really unmaintainable. Even in planting it, if within the warranty period, you could not replace any of those 4 trees in the back without just sort of destroying everything. And I would strongly encourage you guys to look at this a little bit more critically. And if this is the landscape plan that's moving forward, I would also encourage the planning board to look and see if this actually meets the spirit of what the green score is trying to accomplish, because this is not a landscape per se. This is just checking a sort of box. That's not viable space, and it's not maintainable in any way.
Okay, so it's something that I'll review with our landscape architect for the next meeting.
And I would also, it looks like the landscape plan hasn't cut up to the architectural exterior.
Yep.
So if that could get updated as well.
Yeah, I didn't update it for this meeting because I wasn't sure which option we were going to end up with. But we'll have that for the next meeting. I'm sorry, Sarah. Your audio
is like
properly.
all elf-like.
It's good to see you, but you sound like Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah, like on nitrous.
I don't know how to respond to what Sarah said because I don't know what she said.
I think she's logging out and logging back in to see if that solves the problem.
Sherry, I think, might have comments as well, if she could be unmuted.
I think she is not connected to the meeting.
Oh, here she is.
Tough day for connections.
Share yourself muted.
Testing.
That's
Yes.
better.
It probably was more amusing the other way, but no, all I was going to do is, since I was going to nag the commission, you're going to, wish I'd shut up anyway. This project is already, this is its second meeting, so I'd just like to remind everybody of that, and whether a third meeting is really necessary, or if there are things that can be conditioned before in sort of advisory to the planning board's review.
Is it possible to approve a combination of Scheme 1 and Scheme 2? Or Scheme 1 using some elements from Scheme 2?
Yeah,
Looking
I'm
at scheme
I'm
two,
comfortable with scheme 1, the way, so with the comments that my colleagues made. Yes. And also, I was curious what folks thought of on the Broadway side, not extending the brick up into the mansard area.
Right.
I think it's a much stronger scheme without that, but I'm curious. It feels like applique right now to me.
yeah, I think you're onto something there. I think either it's becomes something that's more differentiated, like it pushes up above the roof line, like maybe you carry the cornice at level 4 through, and then it's a different brick expression, and then it carries up above the roof line, and it's really something that's different. Or it just becomes another bay. I like that it's differentiated in its width and it's unique. And maybe there is still something that's different about it, the way it's detailed, what happens at the cornice. I could go either way. Either it stays brick and becomes more differentiated, or it becomes standing seam.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm not opposed to a more vertical expression above the entry, but I can see the horizontal standing seam taking dominance over that facade. I think the ground level reads perfectly fine as an entrance with the enlarged glass area, and there's a little bit of a expression like a eyebrow above the entrance. So I think, you know, it's reading as a entry. So if there is more effort taken look at that, it would be kind of, you know, if it goes away, or if it's kind of like what I think Tim is talking about. It's a little bit, maybe it's a little bit stronger than what it is.
There's one thing, you know, as I look at this closer, I have the elevation up in front of me as well. Looking closer, and it's subtle, but there's a variation in the roof heights at the top of the bay, the
Right.
2 wide bay, and the roof that's behind it, and then the center bay. I think it's really nice. It's a nice level of detail. And then at the corner, that back plane behind the balconies pushes up even above that.
Yep.
I don't know whether that hierarchy is right, or maybe whether that middle bay would want to be the tallest element.
You're saying taller than the corner.
Yeah, if maybe the corner wants to come down, and the middle bay, the 3-window wide bay, wants to push up to that level and really be the tallest element.
Okay, I can play with that. I can also show you, if you'll allow me, what that looks like having the 3-story brick.
Yeah, I like the quietness of it, and, you know, to Tim's point, making just, you know, having some nice, I think I like it like that. But it feels more like, well, it just feels more coherent to me, as opposed to lots of different things. I don't think lots of different things adds necessarily makes it a better thing. A lot of, you know, the corner is pretty strong right now. I just feel like it sets up a nice rhythm on that facade.
I agree. I'll just I'll make the bay the same height as the other bay, so it comes up to the sill of the windows there. But I'll play around with it.
Okay.
This is why I like doing these from home.
So it sounds like the commission seem to be in consensus around facade option 1.
I would support, yeah.
Do I have a motion for facade option 1?
So moved.
I will. The motion.
All right. Do I have a second? I heard a motion by Tim Talon.
I will second.
All right, second by Tim Hood. Before we start voting, since Sherry had some issues with muting and stuff, Sherry, do you have any comments that you'd like to make? Give you some time here.
Sherry, you're self-muted.
She says she can't connect, and it's fine.
All right, so we'll proceed with A motion made by Tim Talon for facade option 1, seconded by Tim Hood. I will take a roll call vote. Andrew Arbaugh,
Yes.
Deborah Fennick,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
Sherry Ruane, hearing nothing from Sherry Ruane.
Tried. Sorry.
I will.
Hello?
Hi, Sherry. Hi, Sherry.
Hey,
Roll call vote. Do you vote for facade option 1?
sorry, you guys. What a hassle. I'm so sorry. Yes.
All right. Tim Hood. All right. Tim Hood.
Yes.
All right. Facade option 1 has successful or unanimously been voted. Would you all like to discuss the design guideline? This is really
Could
distracting.
Sherry mute?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to vote on if this project has met the design guidelines or not?
Yes. I'll so motion.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tim Hood. Roll call votes that this project has met the design guidelines. Andrew Arbaugh,
Yes.
Deborah Fennick,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
Sherry Ruane, all right, I'm going to move on from Sherry. Oh, I'm unmuted from Sherry. Oh,
Yes.
all right, thank you. Tim Hood. Tim Hood.
Yes.
All right, this project has successfully met the design guidelines. And then in terms of additional design feedback from you all, it sounds like that you guys have had some discussion around the corner and having a little bit of an easier transition from Broadway onto Thurston at the ground level. In addition, there was some discussion about the mansard coming clearly across the front facade and the termination of the brick being uniform across the 4 bays. I think there was some discussion about the materiality feeling a little unresolved around the use of the wood. So I think between commissioners, some would like to see a continuation around the corner, and others seem to prefer what was presented in facade option 1.
I think if we've approved facade option 1, I think this suggestion, and please correct me if I'm wrong, anyone else, this suggestion would be just to not use the wood at the corner.
Right, because it's just on the one strip.
Yeah.
Okay, so for facade option 1, eliminate the use of wood.
Can I go back to where you referenced the mansard on the second condition? We don't actually intend on putting a mansard roof on this. We just want to use the vertical standing seam siding. So I just want to make sure that the language reflects that. So we don't get to the planning board and they say, hey, there's not a mansard roof on this. And I just want to avoid the issue before we get there.
Yes,
Okay.
That that sounds appropriate. I think that's all I have in my notes. And just a more careful consideration around the landscaping, that it's maintainable and not just a dead space. Does that sound accurate in summary?
And
Yes.
can I add one other thing, which is, I think that with option 1, the grays of the standing seam and the brick is, there's and then the base is yet another gray, or it's a warmer color. I think the choice of those is really important, you know, and I think that's why I was a little bit, my screen's showing them not that compatible. You know, they're sort of they feel like a near miss to me in tonality, and it could be my screen again, but I think that that choice of the brick in relationship to the standing seam is really important. That they're compatible.
I think if we could also
Something that I'm happy
prioritize the
to take a look
detailing of the base at the given the slope condition, because we've seen that done poorly on other projects, almost adjacent to this project.
Yeah.
Let's not name names here.
Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say as well, Andrew. Broadway at Temple across the street. And there's a couple
Looks
other
like-
examples in the city as well, but where the building meets, where the materiality of the base of the building meets the sidewalk, they just don't match. And it's a really awful condition. So I think prioritizing that, but also large scale, you know, at some scale, say at least 3/4 of an inch equals a foot, but details around the base of the building. So I would recommend to the planning board that be part of the review and part of what's approved.
Okay. So to continue my summary, so no wood for facade option 1, that the grays, the various grays are carefully considered so they don't seem like a one-off or a near miss. That again, the transition at the base and all the grades, that there's careful attention and specific detailed drawings at a very blown up scale to demonstrate to the planning board that the transition all around the public realm is nice and pleasant in the public realm. Sherry, since you're on video, I just want to make sure if you have any
I don't even
comments.
know. Oh, hold on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry, you guys. What a train wreck. So I just wanted to echo the comments about the wood material being present on the side, because we all agreed on facade 1, right? Sorry, I know this is late to the party. I know, sorry. But I did like the idea that that extended at least into the porches. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought that tie-in felt important. And then just to echo Andrew's comment about those trees, it's 100% accurate. And so more trees on the street is a must. And there's not much else for landscape comment, but thanks for your patience, guys. Sorry.
All right then. So do I have a motion for this project to adopt the additional design guidance the commissioners have given this evening?
So motioned.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, motion made by Andrew Arbaugh, seconded by Deborah Fennick. Roll call vote. Andrew Arbaugh,
Yes.
Deborah Fennick,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
Sherry Ruane,
Yes.
Tim Hood.
Yes.
All right, that concludes the votes this evening for 366 Broadway. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, everybody. See you on the next one around.
All right, so the next order of business on our agenda this evening is the Urban Design Commission's Rules of Procedures and Policy Update. So I think this item was brought to the agenda by way of Tim Talon. Tim, would you like to open up the discussion?
Sure. So we've talked a few times about this. Back in November.
How we can't hear you. Hmm.
Thank you. Whoever unmuted me, thank you. So we met back in November 14th. We had I think a really good discussion among commission members. Dan, Sarah, Courtney, and Andrew, I don't know who else attended. But a good discussion about a number of things related to how the commission functions, our relationship with the planning board, our scope. And so I was just hoping we could maybe get a progress update on some of those. I have some specifics that I'm particularly interested in, but I think in general, status of updates to the rules and regulations.
I can take this, Courtney. This is Andrew Kraminski. Tim, we are currently still in the process of updating the rules and procedures for all our boards. And I hate to say that I don't have any news because that's the truth. It's still a work in progress. But one thing would be helpful for us staff is if the commission members could provide us potentially some comments regarding the current rules and procedures and what they would like to see changed. You can send us comments via email individually. I will provide with everyone the current rules and procedures document so you can review again. And what we can do is that we'll just take those comments and we'll use that to help draft sort of a new set of rules and procedures, which will eventually make their way to you all to be reviewed, hopefully in the next few weeks to months. But that's sort of where we're at across the board with all the boards and commissions that planning staff.
Okay, well, thank you. I did send specific comments, including specific suggested text edits to rules and regulations that could be incorporated.
Would it be possible?
Yes, we have those. We do have those, but if other commissioners could do the same, that would be greatly appreciated.
Would it be possible to establish a rules and regulations subcommittee to help aid the process?
I believe you guys can establish subcommittees, but Sarah Lewis, if you want to chime in on that, I think that could be a great idea. But since she and Courtney are the co-chairs, I'll let them also speak.
Yeah, I think that if that is something that you want to do, that is definitely a way forward. I would say just that we're trying to get, as Andrew had said, parity between the boards, and so trying to at least develop some parallel structures and sets of operational elements. The one thing that we will have soon, separate than the rules and regulations, will be the update to the submittal requirements. That is sort of part of that. Andrew, have those been shared yet?
The rules, the submission requirements for what we've been working on the past couple of months with
Yeah.
all applications.
Have those been
Those
shared?
have not been shared.
Have those been shared with the boards yet?
But
Not
we will
yet.
send those out this evening.
Okay.
All right, so those will be coming very soon. And that'll,
Should we establish a subcommittee? What would be the rules that would govern that? Would we be able to meet in smaller groups, or how would those meetings still need to be publicly advertised, or how does that work?
that's a very good question. Andrew, remind me, how many is quorum? 3?
3.
So depending on how large you want to make the committee, if it's a 2-person committee, I don't think we have to make it a public meeting. If it's a 3-person, of course we do.
Okay, and then so if we establish the subcommittee, we would just let you guys know when we were going to meet, and we would meet on Zoom, or could we meet in person, or how does that work?
That would be your choice.
Okay. Sorry, I sort of grabbed the mic from Tim, so sorry.
No, that's okay. Thank you for that suggestion. I think that's a very good one. I'd be interested in helping out with that. Another item kind of related to that I just wanted to touch on is kind of our own time management as well. I think right now we've established a 20-minute for presentations, which I think has gone very well and helped encourage brevity. But then 20 minutes for our own deliberations as well. And I think we would benefit from a little more flexibility in that. And so just wanted to put that out there for discussion. I think we've spent 20 minutes talking about a 2-story addition to a building and 20 minutes talking about a 500,000 square foot high-rise building that's very impactful. And
I will say that usually with the 20-minute is just to give you a reference point rather than to be a limitation. Because very often the discussion does still go on anyway. So it's not intended to be a limit, it's just a reference point.
Mm-hmm.
Should it be longer? Would you like a 30-minute warning, or sort of the
I think the 20-minute warning is good. But I think maybe just especially, I'm thinking of buildings in high-rise districts where we're reviewing site design, 3 massing options, and 3 facade options all in one meeting. I think that just at the outset, I think we should plan on longer than that. We may even benefit from setting aside specific time to talk about site design and massing options and facade options.
One of the things it makes it where it's going to make a difference is with scheduling and the agenda and the length of meeting. So depending on, like today, we had, sort of one project that was a continuation. One of the things we could do with some of the larger, more complex, as you said, in the high-rise district, is perhaps each element that we have to take a vote on, there's a, sort of a 20-minute sort of, not limit, but I don't know what word to use other than warning, a 20-minute time check for each of those votes. Now, I know the discussions obviously get all muddled up. You can't really talk strictly about massing without talking about some of the elevation elements and things like that. But that's perhaps something that we could try as well. And I think some of these things we can try them at a meeting, see if it works, see if it feels right. But we just need to know ahead of time so that when Andrew is trying to schedule projects, if we do have, for example, one of those projects, one of the big high-rise projects, I'd rather have just that on that agenda that night, or we'd be more efficient about adding smaller ones. So it does get tricky with scheduling a little bit, and that's sort of why we were trying to limit the length of meetings in that regard. So there's a balance there, is all I'm saying.
Okay.
I think two other items I'd like to just follow up on. We talked about in November, I think again in March, the possibility of a joint meeting with the planning department, an update, and see if that is still a thing that could happen.
It's still in the background. The difficulty that we're having at the moment is finding time on the planning board's agenda, just because of the number of cases that they're dealing with and the number of joint hearings with the land use committee that are being scheduled. So it might have to be a separate special meeting that's advertised, and I haven't broached that with the chair of the planning board yet.
Could we, or invite them to our meeting, or just something like I think it was kind of the #1 priority at that November meeting, and whichever version gets it done, I think we would be interested in that, because it's, we're recommendations, but we don't have any relationship with them.
Yeah, and maybe that is a good idea, inviting them to the Tuesday instead of trying to squish it into the crazy Thursdays, which is land use, city council, and planning board. So that's not a bad idea.
And then I think we had discussed in that November meeting too, the establishment of a checklist, sort of a review checklist. I just want to bring about that. I think that was from you guys, and it sounded like a really good idea. And if that could progress at some point, that would be incredibly helpful, I think, as we jump into these.
I totally agree, and I think that's going to go with the submittal requirements work that's been done. I think that's going to make it a whole lot easier to sort of streamline what that looks like for the project. So I'm hoping, and Andrew G, you can probably fill in a little bit more on that.
Work in progress. Confirm, Andrew, what do you mean checklist? Do you mean for like before you get before every meeting you would receive from us staff sort of a checklist for every project, correct? Depending on
that was something we discussed in that November meeting, and I think it's reflected in the meeting notes from that meeting as well.
Yes, yeah, we will go back. We will review those the notes in the recording, Andrew.
Just one area, I mean, as I re-looked at the rules and regulations for you all, there's still a lot of content that has never been written around civic spaces in thoroughfares. So, I mean, I feel like now that you guys have been through one thoroughfare and a few civic spaces, just if there's, if something's not clear, or you're feeling that additional requirements need to be submitted, I feel like that's a great moment for you all to communicate with us what's missing or would help. Because I feel like if I write it, then I'm coming from a very different position than you all are.
Building on that, I feel like that's where a rules and regulations subcommittee would be helpful, because us sort of all sitting in our own silos and chucking this at you guys, I think is a less fruitful process than some of us sitting in a room together and actually being able to discuss with one another.
One of the things that I will check with legal actually is, so I was thinking about sort of our landscape architects on this call right now, where Courtney and I are co-chairs, even though we don't vote, do we count towards quorum? So let me do a double check with legal on that and see what that looks like as far as the committee formation.
I had two other points I wanted to hit. One is related to another thing we talked about back in November, and I'm realizing that was about 6 months ago. So this is like the 6-month check-in. How our recommendations that we vote on at the end of the meeting are conveyed to the planning board, and then I guess to the wider public as well, because it gets posted along with the meeting materials. Is that something that, I guess I know I saw a couple of them, and Andrew, you had sent them to me for comment, but is that something where there could be kind of a more regular process of sending that out to the whole commission after meetings and taking comment before that gets sent to the planning board?
I think the difficulty there, Andrew, and you definitely need to weigh in on this. What I see as might be the difficulty is just the timing and the workload of things with the actual reports. So that's something I'd want to look at sort of from a workload standpoint internally, to be honest with you, to see how that affects flow with the other reports that have to be written.
Yeah, I think it's because we review the meeting minutes and we vote on the meeting minutes, but the intent of the meeting minutes is that they're very deliberately general and they don't include details about what we've deliberated on. And the report, the Urban Design Commission report, does include those details. And so it would be great to have the opportunity to just take another look at those before they go out.
Okay.
This is Andrew, just to jump in real quick. If Sarah, if it's all right, if I just jump in really quick on this. So Tim, basically before the start of the fiscal year, sorry, not the fiscal year, the actual year. I'm thinking budget season right now. I was responsible for all the UDC written recommendations. Now we have individual case planners working on them. So I think maybe some of the process has slightly changed from what I was doing before, when I would send them out to when I thought that I need some further clarification. So I think, like what Sarah said, that we need to bring this to the team internally and talk about it and go from there. But I do think it's a good idea to get some extra eyes, especially from those who are providing their recommendations. So thank you.
Okay. The last item I had was just scope of the commission. I understand that Councilor, and I'm forgetting his name now. Well, one of the councilors has put in a zoning change that would formally remove backyard cottages from our purview. Wilson, thank you. I think so, which is great. I think we generally are all in agreement about that. The other thing that I had written you about, Sarah, and others on the team, is related to urban design plans and master plans. I think whenever I talk to someone about the scope of the Urban Design Commission, they are always surprised that the Urban Design Commission is not responsible for reviewing urban design plans, master plans, special permits specifically. Is that something that the planning department could move forward as a change? Or, well, I guess first of all, is there, maybe I should put that out there for discussion, if the other commission members agree that that's something that we should be reviewing or would add value to. Sharing, nodding.
Tim Hood.
Are you trying to talk, Tim?
Yeah, we can't hear you.
He's muted.
There we
Right
go.
now.
Yes, I wanted to express agreement that I think there's value in us reviewing urban design plans, that's all. I think Tim had mentioned us trying to look at Davis Square at some point earlier this year. And I don't know if that request had moved forward or it's stalled, but I was looking forward to commenting
Yeah,
on
so
that.
there's two different things. So Davis Square is a neighborhood plan or a small area plan. So that's sort of a different category than the master plan special permits. But I do think it's worth talking about those further as to sort of what the review and input might be. That is something that I need to at least run up the flag within the administration before I can give you a definitive answer, unfortunately. And then a zoning amendment to add design review as part of the master plan process would go through the council. And so that might take a little while, but let me start the internal conversations first and see where we land. Yeah, as far as the idea that I think it's easier actually to have the neighborhood plans or the small area plans be shared for comment than it is sort of trying to change the actual zoning process. So I think that's probably something we can do more administratively as possibly as part of the rules and regulations. So that one might be an easier lift. Just to give you an update, Tim, on Davis is perilously close, but still not ready for release and review yet.
So what areas are being, neighborhood plans being updated? I mean, I knew Davis was, but.
Davis Assembly has just had a big public process, and that next round has had all the public comments incorporated, and so that should be released very soon. And then the other one we're working on is Brick Bottom.
Yeah, so I agree with my colleagues. I think it's a real handicap not to have involvement with those things. You know, for us to have that context as a part of how we're thinking about, what's being proposed, I think is really, really important.
I think there's a lot of expertise on this commission, and I think the city would benefit from, all of the members of this commission having input on those plans.
I do not disagree.
Okay.
Are there any further points of discussion?
I think if we could, just one other thing is just on future agendas, if we could leave just a moment for discussion on the agenda moving forward. I think just the way our agendas are currently structured, if we want to have any sort of conversation, that's not really, there's not a spot for that.
Any further comments? All right, so we did discuss the meeting minutes that we approved in the first place, and then the 366 team. Apparently the minutes should have been changed. So
I didn't read the same, I didn't interpret the minutes the same way that you did. I didn't see a vote on a certain option.
okay, so then perhaps
I
there
think it was an error on staff's on the note taking's behalf. So it was just an error.
Okay, so then it sounds like there was probably guidance given to the applicant, but no official vote taken on a
Yes.
facade option. Okay, all right, so then it sounds like the meeting minutes as approved at the beginning of this meeting stand. Okay, great. So with that being said, it sounds like there's no further business, correct? All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn tonight's
Adjourn.
meeting? I heard Blas, so, okay. I heard from Tim Talon. All right, do I have a second? Seconded by Deborah Fennick. Roll call votes, Andrew Arbaugh,
Yes, please.
Deborah Fennick,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
Sherry Ruane. All right, I saw a visual yes. Tim Hood.
Yes.
All right, that closes tonight's meeting of the Urban Design Commission. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Okay.
Good night.